Listen to this. You hear that? Sounds like an ice cream truck. Fist me, kitten. That sounds wrong. Here we go. Oh, quite a gentle takeoff. The ice cream music plays. Come on, we're running out of road. 0 to 100 in seconds. And to be honest, I am a little bit annoyed that I have had to find out this way and not just straight from the source. The onslaught of Chinese cars continues, this time with Geely. Now, Geely sell a lot of cars. They have a lot of brands under their brand umbrella. At the top is Geely. Below them, you got Zeekr, Polestar, Volvo, Lynk & Co, which is now actually a part of Zeekr. It all is very confusing. So their head office, their main brand, is launching this, the Geely EX5. It is another mid-sized electric SUV from China with some frankly hilarious quirks, like the fact it sounds like an ice cream truck when you're at low speeds. Yeah, I'll show you that, don't worry. Today I'm going to take you for a full review of this all-new mid-sized SUV for Australia. I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about it, what's good about it, what's not so good about it. We'll check out the exterior, the interior, the practicality. We're going to launch it from 0 to 100, see just how fast it is, because it's actually got a different setup to the other Geely brands that are in Australia. That's right, it's a little bit different. It's also got some pretty funky things on the inside too. We'll drive it, see how it drives, and I'll give you my final thoughts. Should you buy the Geely EX5? Let's get into it. Okay, let's talk about price, because this one is kind of annoying. When they invited everyone to this launch, we all thought they would announce pricing, but instead they're doing what a lot of Chinese car companies are doing, and that is announcing the pricing 2 weeks later, which is frankly just kind of infuriating, because how do I review a car when I don't know the price? Thankfully, I was able to weasel out what that pricing will probably look like. There's two grades. There's the Complete, which is actually the base model, and then there's the Inspire. And just like that, the pricing for the Geely EX5 has been leaked. It's been about a week since I filmed that review. It's really hard, by the way, to review a car when you don't have pricing, so that's a discussion for another day. We were actually the first to report on this at CarSauce.com. Make sure you read that every day, because boy, do we have some good breaking news. But Geely EX5 Complete is $43,490, which is actually cheaper than pretty much everything else in the market except for the base model BYD Atto 3, certainly cheaper than a Leapmotor C10, which is not great. And then you have the Inspire, which is $47,490, which is again very good pricing. However, throughout this video, because I was told on the day it would cost between $46,000 to $55,000 drive away, I had to speculate on the price, which is actually very annoying. It doesn't change any of the feelings I had throughout the review, but frankly, the tonality might have been a little bit nicer towards the car had I known it was cheaper. So I guess this is a good lesson for manufacturers. When you launch a car in Australia, do tell us what the pricing is if you're going to ask us to review it. But anyway, you could probably tell I'm kind of annoyed about the whole situation. In fact, all of my motoring journalist friends are as well. And also keep in mind that prices are subject to change, but I would suggest that if they go any higher, it probably won't perform very well. So let's get back to the review. I think it's pretty good looking, although again, they're all starting to look a little bit the same. And that isn't me being carist over here. They're all just, you know, trying to get ultimate ergonomics in a similar package. That ends up looking quite the same. So you got this pretty cool front end. I do like the Geely logo. It's kind of like a chocolate bar. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You've got a very plugged up front area, except for a little cooling down here. And that is of course for your air conditioning system and cooling some of the componentry. You have a light here that I'm trying to figure out what that does. But anyway, this one here is a very bright LED light, which is very good. And otherwise there isn't much to talk about. Ooh, except for the colors. You can get it in black, gray, white, or this green. So it's kind of a boring color palette, if I'm being totally honest with you. Let's check out the side. Okay, so coming to the side, you're gonna see these 19-inch alloy wheels. They're mostly plugged up actually for aerodynamics, and they're wrapped in some pretty decent Goodyear tires. And this is one of the first upgrades you will get for going for the Inspire over the Complete. That gets 18-inch alloy wheels, which come with Gitti tires. And we all know how Gitti tires perform, not that great. And this thing, it does send all of its power through the front wheels, which we'll come back to, but really you want decent tires on this thing, otherwise it just spins its wheels. Here, you have your charge port. So interestingly, this thing does get 100 kilowatt of DC fast charging, which for the class is at the higher end. Not quite BYD Sealion 7, which is 150 kilowatts, or even Tesla Model Y, but certainly better than a Leapmotor C10 and a Deepal SO7. You also get 11 kilowatt of AC charging, which is actually quite fast for an AC charge port. good to see. Here you get a 360 camera. It's got a very good 360 camera. You get flush door handles that of course do pop out. You get very tinted privacy glass, which is good to see. And otherwise, there's not much to talk about. It is a mid-sized SUV. Let's talk about the bum. Okay, let's talk about the bum on this thing. And this is where I'm probably most disappointed with the looks, to be honest. There's actually nothing wrong with the looks of this thing. It's a handsome SUV. The issue is that it looks so similar to so many other mid-sized SUVs out there. Like Leapmotor C10 is a perfect example. This could be a Leapmotor C10. It could be a Porsche Macan, you know, like it's just kind of copying, and that's what I don't love. Or maybe someone else copied it, I don't know. But the reality is that they do just look a little boring, unlike the Zeekr. So we know that Geely Group can put out some pretty cool designs. Anyway, this is, I guess, a bit more simplistic. Got a light bar that runs all the way across. Geely EX5 badging there. Thankfully, it's quite minimalist in its badging, which is a good thing. A lot of Chinese cars just throw badges. Looking at you, BYD Sealion 7, where your badges are wonky. No, you don't get that here, thankfully. And then down the bottom, you get a nice little diffuser. Not much else to talk about, to be honest. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What do you think of the looks of the Geely EX5? Do you think it's too similar to other SUVs, or is it its own thing? I don't know. Let's talk about practicality. So one thing the Geely EX5 does do very well is the practicality side of things. To an extent, because there is no frunk, which is a bit of a shame, because this thing is front wheel drive only, and apparently all of that is just taken up by electric motor stuff. I don't particularly buy it, to be honest, because got the BYD Sealion 7, that comes with a frunk. But anyway, you press this, powered tailgate, then you get, well, on paper, looks like, excuse me while I take out our lunches, you get what looks like a pretty unremarkable space. So it's only 302 liters of boot space, which really isn't great on paper. But again, that's on paper. You have your subwoofer here. More on that later because this thing has an epic sound system. But if you lift up this false floor, it reveals an insane amount of room. You get another 108 liters of boot space, very, very deep. You can also drop the false floor. So that will give you 410 liters of combined space, which is a lot. And then if you drop the second row, it actually extends out to 1,877 liters of boot space. So even though this thing is relatively compact in size, it can fit a lot inside of itself. Very, very good. Let's check out the interior. Alrighty. Let's talk interior now of the Geely EX5. Ooh, there's a cute little kitten on my display and looks like I can change between a bunch of different animals. We'll come back to that. That's interesting. Anyway, the interior, what's it like? Well, it's honestly really solid, I would say. You open the door, slam it. It feels like a well-built car. Absolutely, no doubt about that. But it also feels a little uninspiring, I'm not gonna lie. Now, you can get this interior in this like midnight blue, I think they call it. There's also a cream interior, which does brighten things up a bit. But it's starting to get to the point where all of these interiors for me are kind of blending together, which isn't great, but it does have one standout feature, which I will come back to. So, soft touch materials in a lot of places, but scratchy materials. Don't expect to see that in a Chinese car. This is all nice and soft though. The steering wheel is a very odd shape, but I kind of love it. It is a bit of a love-hate situation though, because on the left-hand side, you have unmarked buttons, and that controls your cruise control, your adaptive cruise control, which isn't very good, but we'll come back to that. And then on the right-hand side, you have your media controls, but again, unlabeled. You can use it to control the display up in front of you. It's a very similar display to others we have seen, like in the Sealion 7. It's just a little tab, essentially, but you can go through a few different menus, and it's actually very snappy, responsive, and color accurate. Same with this display. Now, apart from the weirdness of the backgrounds, it is a good display bar a couple of things. So very, very snappy. Like this thing is extremely snappy to the point where they say they have future-proofed it with over-the-air updates that it will be capable of. You do have to control pretty much everything through this display, though it's not really a bad thing, including your air conditioning controls, which does seem like they're dual zone, but they're not. They just have the temperature on each side for some reason. A bit of a miss, especially considering my very cheap Cherry Tiggo 4 Pro that has dual zone air conditioning. That's about half the price of this. So yeah, that's a bit of a weird miss. The seats though, they do come as standard, heated, cooled, and massaging, which is absolutely absurd. Like the massaging, no joke, is the best massage I have had in any new car ever. And that is not an exaggeration. They are genuinely incredible. Very strange, and you can change between 6 different modes as well. So what's the downside of this display? Well, I would love to show you Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but this car doesn't have either of those things. For now, they do say that Apple CarPlay is going to come via over-the-air update in July, but no ETA yet on Android Auto. And you know what I always say, do not buy a car on the promise of features, because we've been burned many times by Tesla specifically. So yeah, Just think about that. Okay, so what about these seats? Well, apart from having great massage and pretty good comfort, although you don't have any adjustable leg support for the driver, you do have the most leg support adjustment I have seen for the passenger, because you can literally make it lie flat. It's crazy how far the leg extension will come up, which is really comfortable for the passenger, but sadly no such thing for the driver. And like I said, you can't change the angle of the seat either, which might sound like a little complaint, but for me, I found myself sliding off this seat quite a lot, especially on downhills. But they do have a really cool party trick other than that weird extending leg part. They've got speakers in the headrest. Now, this is where this thing blows away everything else, and that is the sound system. So it's got a 16 speaker, they call it Fly Me sound, or Flimmy sound, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's 1,000 watts. It uses silk components within there as well, and it sounds absolutely incredible. If you are an audiophile, you are going to love the Geely EX5, because frankly, it sounds unbelievably good. Some other interesting quirks here, you have a volume dial and your mute button. It doesn't really do much else. You can apparently adjust that, though I haven't really cared to figure that one out yet. You also have buttons here, but they're almost useless, just turning on the aircon off and on, and that's about it. Again, kind of sucks. I just wish there were physical controls rather than in a display, or just get rid of these and stop teasing me. Under this nice panel here, open that up, and you've got a couple of cup holders here and a random storage area, which no idea what you'd fit in there. You've also got what looks like a couple of wireless chargers, but it's not. On the left-hand side, you have just a slot for your phone, I guess. And then on the right-hand side, you do have a wireless charger, but it is not a good wireless charger. In fact, my phone discharged and didn't charge on there. That kind of sucks. Storage though is very good in here. You do have a big glove box. It's quite big. You've also got a nice soft center armrest with heaps of storage in there. Door bins are a massive size as well. You've also got this huge open storage space up front with a USB-A port, USB-C fast charger, and 12-volt socky wocky. So you certainly couldn't accuse this of not being anything other than quite practical for a mid-small sized SUV. So what do you get if you go for this top of the range? Inspire, I think they call it, rather than the Complete, which you would think is complete but is not. You get a large panoramic sunroof. You also get the really good sound system, get ambient lighting as well, and bigger wheels on the outside. And really, that's it. Let me know in the comment section, which would you go for based on just those features alone. Let's check out the back seats. Alrighty guys, so back seats now of the Geely EX5. What is it like? Well, first thing I'm kind of noticing is just how reclined these seats are. You can see they're very reclined indeed, which is relatively comfortable. I think they're doing it so that your legs can be at a good angle, because actually the floor is quite raised up. And to be fair, my legs are at a good angle. I've got heaps of leg room. Toe room as well is fantastic. Headroom is really, really good too. You can even go back just a little bit further, which is interesting. Yeah, these seats are quite reclined is what I've noticed. Amenities back here are also good. You get a couple of air vents. In the back seats, you get a USB-A port, another USB-C fast charger. You got a tiny little storage area there, mat pockets too. You do get soft touch materials in the back, pretty large door bins too. And I will say these seats are very nice, despite being a faux leather, and you get a pull down center armrest with a couple of cup holders. Not gonna say it's the most inspiring back seats ever, but I am appreciating this giant panoramic sunroof right now. So yeah, in terms of interior, I don't think it's gonna blow anyone away. And I'll be totally honest with you, it doesn't do much different to its competitors apart from the seats and sound system, but it is a nice place to be. It certainly feels quite solid and very quiet in here. You know what else is solid and relatively quiet? CarSauce Buy. That's right, our car buying service. I think it is the absolute best thing out there. Just Google us, CarSauce Buy. We have a dedicated team of car buyers who are out there to get you the absolute best price on pretty much any new car. The way it works is we make dealers fight one another to get you the best price possible. And because we charge dealers a fixed fee, we are on your side. We're consumer advocates, so we go in the hardest to get you the best price possible. Last week we had 50 of you buy a car through us, so thank you very much. And if you want to join them and actually get an amazing deal on your next new car, you've got to Google CarSauce Buy, and my team will take care of you totally free for you. Alrighty, I think it's time to launch it. Okay, so now we're gonna launch the Geely EX5, and listen to this. You hear that? Sounds like an ice cream truck. That's right, this thing has an external speaker, like a lot of EVs, but it plays a ballad. It plays an ice cream truck song. That's the only way I can describe it. A little bit weird, a little bit whack, but I guess it's not quite as weird as the Zeekr X, which has a literal external speaker to play whatever you want, and it sounds terrible. So, let's launch this thing. They claim it will do 0-100 in about 6.9 seconds. Let's put that to the test. To do so, we're gonna put the car into sport mode. Fist me, kitten. That sounds wrong. Here we go. Oh, quite a gentle takeoff. The ice cream music plays. Come on. We're running out of road. Alrighty, let's pull over and see what we got. 0 to 100 in 8.06 seconds. That's just okay. All right, let's drive this thing normally. Alrighty, we're coming to sell you ice cream. Driving the Geely EX5. Yeah, this thing is an interesting one because I'm just thinking, wow, you have so many Chinese EVs coming to Australia, Leapmotor C10, Zeekr X, God, the Tesla Model Y Juniper is, I know it's made in China, but you get my point. There's a lot coming. So what makes this stand out? Well, Geely say it is all of the local R&D that they've put into making this thing, which is interesting, right? They've had an engineering crew on ground to do what essentially Kia did to differentiate itself, which is give this thing a local tune. So what does that mean? Well, it means that they have played around with the suspension to make it less Chinese market, which we'll come back to. They've also updated the ADAS stuff, which I'll be honest with you, is not great, to be honest. It's got lane centering, for example, and that lane centering works well, but as soon as you hit a bend, it slows down a lot to the point where I would almost say it's a dangerous level of slowing down. Here's a clip where I was going like 80 kilometers an hour around a bend and it slowed down quite significantly, which is not great when there's cars behind you. And here's another thing I don't know if I love about this. Put our foot down, not much power is happening, and that is because this thing is front wheel drive, and therefore when you turn this thing and try and give it some sauce, it doesn't like it, and traction cuts out pretty much all power. So it's not that this thing is in any way slow. You put your foot down, especially when you're already going at speed, it feels quite fast. You get a bit of torque steer, it's a bit of fun. But unlike some of its siblings under the skin, it's front wheel drive, not rear wheel drive, because it's built on a bespoke platform for Geely. Oh, here we go. We're starting with the screaming. Yep, this is just like every other Chinese car at the moment, to be honest. So yeah, when you put your foot down, you get all of the 160 kilowatt of power, 320 newton meters of torque, which is all very healthy, all very standard, to be honest. And its battery size is actually really small at 60.22 kilowatt hours for an LFP battery. But the good news here is that this thing is relatively efficient. Around town, you're going to be getting about 14.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, though on the highway, I saw this thing jump up to 19 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So real world range is about 350 kilometers. WLTP, they'll tell you it's like 410 or something, but it's not actually that. If you go for the complete, you actually get a little bit more range because it's got less weight to it. It doesn't have the heavy sunroof and it's got smaller wheels too. Ride comfort is actually quite good. So when I first got into it, I was like, wow, this is really, really floaty, and it definitely is floaty. Shut up. That's my overspeed alert, but it's gotten the speed wrong. I don't know how Australian tuned it is, to be honest. I would imagine that if it was any more floaty, then it would be quite bad, but it's okay. It's not a dynamic corner carver, that's for sure, but around town, it has been very, very comfortable, and this steering as well. It's very sharp, direct, but it definitely feels quite artificial. So really what I'm saying is that the driving style, it's kind of a much for muchness with a lot of its frankly Chinese competitors. And when I compare it to something like a Sealion 7 Premium that's rear wheel drive, puts out more power, faster charging, and some more range for similar pricing, I don't know, I get a little bit disappointed with how this thing drives. It's certainly fine, but it's not inspiring, if that makes sense. And as we give it its last bit of sauce here, I think I'd summarize the driving experience as being fine, perfectly adequate. All right, let's get into our final thoughts. Me again. Final thoughts on the Geely EX5. I've had to reshoot this again now because what I said is almost irrelevant now that we think we know the pricing. So if the pricing is like they told us on the day, between 49,000 to 55,000 Australian dollars, I would say spend the extra money and go for a BYD Sealion 7 because it is better in pretty much every way. Unless, of course, you really, really love a good sound system, in which case the Geely EX5 has you covered. However, considering that the prices that we found on Redbook and that we reported on are substantially cheaper than, for example, a Leapmotor C10, and they rival very strongly that of a BYD Atto 3, I can recommend it over those two vehicles, assuming it is the pricing that they have announced. Would I still personally go out and get a BYD Sealion 7? Probably, I'd stretch for it. But I also understand if you want to save that almost $10,000 of savings, then the Geely EX5 is a genuinely competent mid-sized to small family SUV. It's also way cheaper than a Kia EV5, by the way. But again, I'm still kind of pissed that we don't know the pricing and that I'm releasing a review without knowing the pricing. But I do have to give you my opinion because pre-orders are open for this thing and I don't want people to make a silly decision. Let me know what you guys think though down in the comment section below. What do you think of the Geely EX5? Is it an RIP BYD Atto 3 or would you just stretch and go for a BYD Sealion 7, which like I said, in pretty much every way is a better vehicle? I'm curious to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below. And of course, if you do want to buy a Geely EX5 or any new car in Australia with the best price possible, just Google CarSauce buy and my team will take care of you. We've helped thousands of Aussies buy their new cars for the best price possible with zero haggling, zero negotiations on your end, and totally free for you. It's a worthwhile service. Ciao for now.